thoughts very concisely because I thought we were recording.
Me too, Bliss.
Sorry, I didn't tell you, and I could tell in the middle of what you're saying. You're like, "Oh, she thinks we're recording," because this is all very good. So now I feel bad that I wasn't recording. My bad.
That's okay. I can whip that off again.
Okay. Maybe when we bring up The Last of Us.
Okay. I can always bring up The Last of Us.
Same. But let's get started. Welcome to Bliss Fully Aware, the show in which three opinionated people discuss current events in fandom and tell you the things you didn't know you needed to know. I am Bliss, and per usual, I am joined by my dear friends and co-hosts, Kelty and Kendra.
Hi.
Hello.
And today, I really, really want to complain about this article I sent y'all earlier this week. So it's an article by Polygon. I think it was just a freelance writer that published it.
I think so.
I would assume so. It's kind of gotta be.
The title of the article is Games Need to Return to Black and White Morality. And the woman who wrote it, I apologize if I mispronounce this, but her name is Ki Hoon Cham. So I hated this article, y'all.
It's a bad article.
Yeah, it's a bad opinion. It's a poorly thought out argument, and it's not only is it poorly thought out, it's the premises of the argument don't even get off the ground. But that's fine. We have forever to get into that.
I mean, aside from the fact that this article is just terrible, it starts out with a call out of two random young adult novelists.
I saw that too.
I saw that too, man. That's really sad and nonsensical.
It was
like
weird.
A total non sequitur. Yeah.
It didn't really have anything to do with anything else
Honestly,
she said either.
On top of my just grievances with this argument, you should really turn off TweetDeck if we're recording.
Shut up.
Okay.
Casual.
On top of my grievances with the content of this article, it just also brings out my inner copy editor because I want to just strike out whole paragraphs being like, this is irrelevant, this is not building toward your point, get rid of it, or reword this, or just this is clunky, and yeah.
It's just interesting because she only drops their names, doesn't say what they've written, just young adult authors, Ava J. and
K.M. Wayland.
Yeah. And I hadn't read anything that they'd put out, so I had to go and look up these writers. And they had several articles and books published by them about how to write creatively. So, okay, you're going to call out these people for having morally gray storylines or characters, I guess is what you're getting at. You took offense from these women at some point.
Or just seems to be implying from their argument that gray morality is compelling narrative drama. The author of this article is then stretching that argument to be, therefore, black and white morality isn't compelling, which is not the arguments they make. The arguments these authors are making are that characters who are not one-dimensional and always act in one way or always flawlessly act within their self-interest can be compelling to a reader, not that absolute moralities are not compelling. It's a very common fallacy to assume that because someone is making an argument in one direction, they are also implicitly making a counter-argument in the opposite direction, and that's not what either of these authors are doing, and it's what the writer of this article is implying in the first two paragraphs of this article.
Well, and the fact that they go on to say, quote, we don't currently need more redemption stories about villains or tales about corruptibility of heroes.
Yeah.
Why?
Also, I want this person to name me one successful redemption arc of a villain that didn't end in death, that isn't Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I want one, because there isn't any. There's not a single one, because nobody knows what redemption is. They think that you have to die in order to be redeemed, which is not a redemption. That's just the end of of their arc.
The only one I can think of, actually, in recent pop culture is Loki from the Marvel Cinematic Universe who fake dies twice, and then, in fact, actually, it seems, real dies in Endgame or Infinity War, whichever one it was. But he, instead of getting a redemption arc or having to be like truly villainous, just kind of fakes his own death a lot to get out of which is very on brand for Loki. I'm not saying that's bad, like, for comic book movies or even for the character of Loki. Just that narratively, they don't really seem to know, like, if he is redeemable, and when he is truly redeemable and, like, does a truly self-sacrificial act to help his brother in the beginning of Infinity War, he seems to die for realsies this time. Like, it's no question his little doppelganger that's splitting off to do the spin-off show, the one in the past when they time travel and he takes the Tesseract and teleports away. Like, he's gonna live on, I guess, but prime timeline Loki is over.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine a compelling story written for adults that only focuses on morally pure and immoral character. Like,
yeah, that's the thing, is that I have nothing to back this up except my own observations and suspicions, but I would bet money on the fact that this attitude comes from the fact that a lot of grown women nowadays read only YA fiction. It's like, it's an occurrence I'm seeing where women in their 20s and up until their 30s are, like, super into only YA literature and, like, read it and are part of the fandom and, like, interact with authors on Twitter in this weird parasocial sort of way. Because, like, as stated in the last episode, book Twitter is crazy, and I would not set foot in that hornet's nest at all.
God.
But from what I observe of book Twitter, it's mostly grown fucking women. And fine, I'm not here to poo-poo on your enjoyment of YA literature. If that's what you want, if that's what, gives you comfort, then go have a great time. I hope it's fulfilling. But so I see a lot of these similar arguments happening in the YA for adults subgroup of fandom people, the subgenre of fandom, where they're arguing over people, like teenagers and young adults of these books, the characters struggling, like having to do anything. Like, not that it's just a book about a perfectly self-actualized teenager who never comes up against a confrontation or, struggles with something or has something mean happen to them. And I can't help but wonder how much of that attitude is influencing articles like this, where, for whatever reason, the author has decided that the only way that we, collectively, we as a society, are going to get through this very traumatizing period of history that we're living through is to have unquestionable bastions of moral good in our narrative fiction lay waste to dragons and monsters and save us all from the tower that living in the modern West has ensconced us in.
well, and they even say so much at the very end. That was another one of the quotes that, like, just jumped out at me. Was them
I'm
saying,
sorry. I read this on my phone, so I didn't even know there was a big old segue into Game of Thrones.
Oh, we don't have to get into that today.
Well, let's not get into that today.
There was just a giant photo of Aiden, Peter, Aiden Gillian, never mind.
So that quote, I just have to read it to y'all. They say, "Watching our heroes stick to their convictions, even against insurmountable odds, ratchets up drama rather than destroying it. The concept that good can ultimately triumph over evil is a timeless one, and stories that rally around this trope, around unadulterated hope, can help guide us through the year's ceaseless onslaught of calamities."
I have a complaint about that. Because the thing that bothers me most about that is the implication that hope is not in morally gray stories.
I mean, apparently it's not.
Well, here I go. Okay, so yes, heroes sticking to their convictions, to their beliefs, in the face of insurmountable odds is dramatic. It is also a heroic thing to do the hard thing when the easier thing is an option. That's only dramatic if we as an audience are worried that our hero might not do that our hero might in fact do the bad thing. And in order for us as an audience to consider that as a possibility, this hero has to have some kind of flaw to appeal to. They have to have something that convinces us, the audience, that they might go do the bad thing instead of the good thing. Because otherwise, if, Sir Lancelot, some actual paladin of virtue, wanders in and the dragon is like, you can go save the princess, or you can have all this money and gold and treasure beyond your wildest dream, and I get to eat the princess, or whatever the stakes are. That's only a dramatic choice if we know that this paladin of virtue might choose the gold over the princess. If we know beyond a doubt that our main character would never take the quote-unquote evil, bad route, then there is no tension, because we never are concerned for one instant that our hero might not do the good thing.
It's like TV, where when you have main characters that just keep surviving, you eventually stop worrying for their safety, which is fine if it's fine if there are other things at stake. But like with Supernatural, where it just wants to have the stakes be the brothers living, but we know that the brothers are going to live, because if they don't live, then one's just going to go and get the other and take them out of death time.
Literally out of hell.
And then they're both alive again. And this just keeps happening. So it stops being dramatic or even interesting.
The stakes literally can't be raised past going to hell, I guess, because they're not... The writers of Supernatural are not prepared to go even further and be like, I don't know, what if God, sends the universe into heat death or something? I don't know. I don't know the rules of Supernatural. It's a stupid show. But,
yeah.
If, because now our heroes, the two brothers, have done the most dramatic thing. They have literally brought someone back from the dead. They have rescued someone from hell. And in this universe, the stakes can't get higher.
Yeah.
So we're just going to repeat that until, the fandom wheels fall off this thing.
And it's been 6 times now, and it's boring now. And that's the thing, is that the first time it was dramatic and it was intense and we were all emotional about it. And then the second time we were like, oh, well, they already did this, so I guess they're going to do it again. And then they did it again. I guess that's good. And then again and again, and then we all stopped watching and it's still playing. Presumably still just going back and forth saving each other from hell until eventually they
get
retire.
bored and retire, yeah.
But it's frustrating that people seem to want that story just over and over at the expense of all other stories. It's one thing if they're like, I just want to watch Supernatural all day. Fine, I get that. All I do is play Animal Crossing when I'm mad, because I just want to just zone out and talk to little animals and build stuff. And it's cute, and it's fun, and I don't care. But I'm not going to run around and be like, we need more Animal Crossing games and fewer games like you people want. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
That was honestly my biggest grievance with the article too, was that not here is the value of simplistic morality in video games. It was simplistic morality in video games is good, actually, and better than all of your lamestream, prestigious writing video games with their moral quandaries and their imperfect heroes. it was this very sanctimonious, like, attitude the author took that I clearly did not sit well with me.
Well, because the only
Yeah.
two games they called out for being morally right and the only example of a good video game was Mario and Monkey Island.
I know, which was also strange because there are mini games
Which,
like this.
yeah, my man, if that's what you need, like, if that's what's gonna get you through these next couple of years, fucking play Mario, man. I don't want to take that from you.
Yeah.
Like, go stomp on a Goomba's head and don't feel the least bit upset or, you know, reflectionary about that. Reflectionary is not a word, but, you know, don't have just go destroy the Mushroom Kingdom. And if that's what you need, then go pursue that. I want that for you.
Yeah, because, like, when Trump got elected, I immediately just played Stardew Valley for like 48 hours straight because I was just like, no, the world isn't real. I'm just gonna farm my veggies and it's gonna be a good time and just make all the villagers fall in love with me, and then that's it. That's the fun time that I'm having.
Like, yeah, I can't live in this world. I can't live in this world. I gotta go farm and sleep with this whole village. Like, that's what I gotta do.
Yeah, and it was nice.
Well, and that's the whole premise of the game, too, isn't it? I give up on society. I'm just gonna go be a farmer.
And, like, that was helpful for me. And I'm not gonna shit on anybody's need to do that in order to function in society, because I get it. But, like, your way isn't the only way, is the thing. Like, when Kendra's sad, Kendra likes to kill zombies and
people
and
totally.
feel this whole, like,
I live in that fucking moral gray area
Yeah.
when I'm sad, man. I want to feel tormented and upset, and I want to indulge in that feeling, because at least then, god damn it, like, I'm not alone. You
Yeah.
know?
And I get that too, because that's also why I, like, attached to Game of Thrones so hard. That's kind of my point, is that both are useful and helpful ways of dealing with your problems. It's fine if you only use one. That's totally fine, but you can't just act like your way is the best way and you don't.
Well, and they're not even saying that these video games are wrong when coping with times of grief. That is how they end the argument sort of randomly.
Yeah, you did,
but
right?
Most of it was just about, in general, these games, these specific games, and games like them in a vague concept sort of way, all suck. Only these two games. And then they also mentioned Undertale, but I don't think they understand what they were saying about Undertale.
Elaborate, because we don't know a goddamn thing about Undertale.
All I know about Undertale is that there's a flower that's cute and then it can be evil sometimes.
Okay, buckle up, and spoiler warning for Undertale, because it is a game that's fun to go into blind. It is a RPG indie darling made by Toby Fox.
Oh.
And the idea is you are, I mean, just to break it down to its bare parts, you are the main character, you fight monsters, you follow a linear path to the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
But to get more into the story, you're a child that falls into the underground. The monsters are in the underground, and they want to go back above ground. And to do that, they have to kill you. So your actions on whether or not you kill the monsters affect the outcome of your game, but you don't know that necessarily at the beginning. It brings in this moral, almost meta-narrative of you as the person are playing this character. So that means that, you know, your morals come into play because you are playing this character. I find it interesting that they think that this is a good game because it does break down into the three different paths: pacifist, neutral, and evil. And that's fine, but that means that there is a level of this game that is neutral and gray. So it basically goes against the entire crux of their argument. And it just really frustrates me, because it feels like they're missing the entire point of the story that Toby Fox is trying to tell. And if you would just take a step back and reflect, maybe you'd get it. but apparently that's impossible.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that complaint too about Last of Us, where they're like, if it's supposed to be a game about telling you that violence is bad, then why do you have to be violent? It's like, well, you're missing the point, really, is the...
Also, that's not the point of The Last of Us. The theme is not violence is bad.
No.
The theme, especially in part 2, is that revenge will destroy you. And it doesn't matter if you are violent or not in pursuit of that revenge. It will take away the good things of your life and won't give you the satisfaction, the closure that you are aiming for. So I don't know why people frame it as a theme about violence. It's not. Like, it's a violent world. There's a lot of violence in these games, but I don't really consider the story to be about violence or for it to be thematically about violence.
It's not. Well, that's the thing, is that especially people only really started saying this in 2, and that's because all the people that you play are women.
Yeah.
So they don't notice that the violence is there from the get-go in the first
Yes,
one
the
too.
first game is also very violent, and like you can have an argument, I guess, whether or not violence in narrative media is good or not, but it's definitely there and not new to The Last of Us Part 2. It's just that it's women both inflicting the violence and having the violence inflicted on them, which makes a lot of people very uncomfortable because they don't like the idea of women being capable of violence.
Mm-hmm. But especially not revenge.
Especially a gay woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because we're probably the angriest.
It doesn't surprise me, but it does make me very angry seeing white straight men play that game and then throw a hissy fit because it wasn't tailor-made for them. You're playing a woman. Like, how many other games do you play women?
Tomb Raider.
Yeah, and like Metroid, you're violent in these games, so what makes The Last of Us so different?
No, it's very much, it's because the main character is not framed as a sex object. Neither of the main characters are framed as a sex object, and male gamers don't know what to do with that.
Ellie's gay, and nobody wants to fuck Abby because they're all fucking cowards.
God, they are cowards. Abby can get it.
You do get to see Abby's tits, but nobody wants to see Abby's tits because she's more muscular than they are, so they're upset about that.
So she's not fuckable.
Mm-hmm. Boo-hoo.
I would fuck Abby.
Me too. God.
Oh yeah, but
I'd have her destroy me.
Yeah, it's very much that male players of these games, if the female protagonist that they're controlling is not a sex object, then they just have to actually empathize with her, and they don't know how to do that.
No.
And so their reaction is anger. Because it's fine puppeteering, a woman around this world if I can objectify her literally. She's an object on the screen. But if I have to empathize with her pain in order to see her as a protagonist, that's scary and hard, and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. I saw, because I like to just be on Facebook and start fights with straight white men because it's fun for me. But I see it on Facebook all the time where it's like, well, but when Joel doomed the human race, at least he did it out of love, quote unquote. Massive air quotes, by the way, because it was a selfish act. You dumbass. You didn't fucking pay any attention. But that's beside the point. But then they're like, but Abby killed Joel. Spoilers, sorry. Abby killed Joel, and that's unforgivable, despite the fact that she also had her own reasons that were also fueled by love and upset and loss. But, she's a woman, so she doesn't really get to have feelings.
She's a woman angry at a man, even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, the game does not frame that act of Abby's as good or, the right thing. it does sympathize with her, but it definitely doesn't valorize her choice. And in fact, a lot of the other characters, a lot of her friends say that to her face. Like, man, I kind of wish we hadn't tortured a guy to death. I feel different now.
Yeah, and even later, she never says it, but you can kind of tell, especially in the end when she's like, I'm not going to fight Ellie, even though she was like, if I see you again, I'll kill you. That was their last moment together, was, if I see you again, I'll kill you. Then Ellie comes in, and she doesn't even want to kill her. Well, she does try, but she, only after Ellie's like, no, we're gonna fight, and I'm gonna threaten your new son.
Your adopted son.
I'm gonna threaten your adopted son in order to get you to do this. And
I just very much need to point out for my own sanity, because I, in fact, hate getting into fights on the internet, and I don't do it, and it's not cathartic for me at all. So this is sort of addressed to everyone I've seen get this wrong. Abby is very much the same character as Joel. She has almost the exact same character arc. She loses a loved one and is tossed down this spiral of revenge and anger. And upon meeting a small child that she sort of pseudo-adopts to protect against this big bad world, she goes through a character arc and learns to care about something other than her vengeance. And eventually turns on her whole society for Lev, for her adopted child, much like Joel did for Ellie. And at the very last scene in the game, at the Pillars of Santa Barbara, they very blatantly put in a parallel where Abby has to scoop up an unconscious Lev and says to him, "Don't worry, I've got you," or something. Basically, word for word, Joel rescuing Ellie from the hospital and carrying her to where, I guess, outside the hospital.
the car.
The car, yeah. And that is because, they want you to realize very obviously that these characters have now gone through parallel character arcs. And it is only Ellie's inability to let go of the need for vengeance that almost dooms that to not happening. So, yeah, I just need everyone to realize that Abby's pain is as sympathetic and justifiable as Ellie's or as Joel's. That doesn't make any of their violence the right thing. It just makes it sympathizable, which are different, by the way. Being able to sympathize with a character is not the same as valorizing that character and all of their actions. I'm done.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome, babe.
No, I don't think I could have said it better myself, though. And I feel like the writer of this article, because they do bring up Joel and his morally gray decision at the very end of the game. And I'm almost like, oh, look, you're almost making a good point.
Yeah, they really do almost stumble on to what they're trying to say in that section where they talk about Joel. Because yes, to quote the article, the tension of the games, The Last of Us, the first one, the game's brutal final act comes from the contrast between how we've been led to perceive him, Joel, and his actions in the most important scene in the game, but that decision loses its impact unless we already mark him as the hero.
Mm-hmm.
And it does. We definitely, at that point in the game, view Joel as the hero. He has done nothing but have bad things happen to him. He loses his daughter horribly, traumatically. He uproots his whole life to help out a bud. And he's done nothing but protect Ellie. So while we understand that he has a horrible, questionable past because, it was the fucking apocalypse and you had to do unsavory shit to survive, we haven't seen him do anything like truly untoward or anything that would make us, be like, maybe this man shouldn't be taking care of this 14-year-old girl in the wilderness. Like, we never are worried about, like, Joel might just snap and, like, lose it one day and, hurt Ellie or abandon her or something. No, that's never like a risk that is set up in their dynamic. But ultimately, Joel saving Ellie from the hospital is a selfish choice and is like a really like crazy violent snap on his part. He's just like, God damn it, I've been through so much shit. I can't lose another person I care about. Everyone in this fucking hospital has to die so that I can keep my surrogate daughter. And also, the rest of society, too. I'm cool with that. I don't care if we find a vaccine, just so long as I can live out the rest of my life with my surrogate daughter, because I can't stand to lose anything else. And yeah, that's a very selfish decision, and it's definitely hard to do. Like, as the player in that scene, I am very conflicted. I don't want Ellie to die, but I also don't want to murder all of these people who are trying to save the human race. So yeah, that conflict of Joel is going to, stack up bodies like cordwood in order to save Ellie is compelling, because I want both things. I want Ellie to be alive, and I want there to be a vaccine, and I can't have both. And that is where the tension and the drama comes from.
Well, and so one terrible take I keep seeing pop up from the straight white male Joel fanboys is that they framed the doctor in The Last of Us 2, Abby's dad, as being bad or corrupt in some way, and so that justifies what Joel did. And it feels like such a reach, because that doesn't make what Joel did right, and it doesn't necessarily make Joel good.
It is, or it doesn't. I would argue that he is a good guy, and that this decision is not a good one, or it's a crazy violent one, but that's the point, is that, like, I can like this character and sympathize with this character and not full-heartedly support everything they ever did. And also, that's, like, yeah, I think casting the Fireflies, the people who, again, were going to murder a 14-year-old girl so that they could save the human race, I don't think that that's a totally morally justifiable position. They don't wake her up on purpose, because there is a chance she might say, no, I don't want to be sacrificed. I want to stay alive, and if making a vaccine for all the zombies means that I have to die, please don't kill me. And then they have to, no question, murder a 14-year-old girl, and that's dark. This is a real, I guess, trolley problem, to put it in really 101, philosophy 101 ethics parlance, to say, is it good or not good, but is it justifiable to kill one person so that many more may live? And that's not a question that we have an answer to satisfactorily in, I'm going to say, the 6,000 years that human beings have been doing, like, written down philosophy. We still don't have a satisfactory answer to that question. It's still a problem, as it were. And so, yeah, the Fireflies are definitely not the plucky freedom fighters who were just gonna harmlessly create a vaccine and save the world, by murdering a 14-year-old girl without her consent. And you can definitely make an argument about problematizing that approach. And they do, by the way. There's a whole scene where Abby's dad and what's the woman's name?
Marlene?
Marlene. Okay. There's a whole scene with Abby's dad and Marlene talking about the ethical implications of murdering a 14-year-old girl without her consent, just so that, you can save the whole world, potentially. But, that wasn't a guarantee. Like, maybe they couldn't make a vaccine. Maybe you couldn't have at least made it in such huge quantities that you could inoculate the whole surviving population. We don't know. But it was a quandary. It was something that they themselves considered as maybe being a little ethically repugnant.
They have that whole scene, though, where she's playing the tape recorder, and they're like, we can't make a vaccine even if we find another person, because the only person who could have made the vaccine is dead. Joel shot him in the face. So, like, no, Joel, you weren't right to save her even then. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have done it. not only can I not prove that, but I also know that
You can't prove that you wouldn't do the exact same thing to save humanity from the zombie plague?
not if it was you, absolutely not.
No, yeah, if I am in that situation and the person I care most about in the world is on the operating table, I cannot guarantee you what course of action I would take.
I'd even be willing to bet that it's the wrong course of action. I'm just saying that just because you empathize with Joel doesn't make him right and doesn't make his decision good, certainly not selfless or smart. I think the thing that people don't realize is that just because you empathize with somebody doesn't mean you have to assume that they're right. It's something that I see on Twitter all the time. It's something that I see when people are complaining about fucking Kylo Ren. Like, Jesus Christ, sometimes we just want to fuck Adam Driver, but God forbid.
God forbid he have a compelling character arc or
A
something.
compelling character arc and a nice outfit. Like, goddamn.
In a swishy black robe. Like, sometimes I just want to be a drama queen in my swishy black robe. And I'm not saying that that's a good impulse. I'm just saying that I can relate to it. I also, yes, like, the flip side of this is that I very much sympathize with Abby. I still think she was wrong to kill Joel. I still think that that was an exercise in futility, and it didn't accomplish anything but foisting more violence into her life and more, pain and hurt, and didn't really give her the closure she wanted until she learned to, I guess, care about people outside of her freakish militaristic society. That's, again, the point. Like, I'm not going to say this is a subtle game. The narrative beats in this story are not super, opaque. They're kind of very fucking obvious. And to see so many people get it wrong and, like, just refuse to engage with the story properly because they're mad that a girl killed their fave is deeply, deeply frustrating.
It is. And I mean, I'm not going to say it's the worst thing to happen in 2020, but it was deeply offensive.
It is something that has a scope that I can deal with. I can deal with a bunch of man babies being mad that a girl is in their video game. I can't deal with a lot of other shit that's going on right now. I don't have control over a lot of other things. If I kind of reduce my sphere of influence down to a bunch of man baby trolls that are mad about video games, that's a problem I can attack, in a day, maybe. I can kind of put that one to bed and then lay my head down at night and be like, that's fine. I did what I could.
Also, just an aside, just really quick, I have to get this off my chest. Okay, so a lot of people, a lot of queer people even, are complaining that Lev's story is dark. I need to talk to you about how you're wrong, okay? Because the important thing is that everyone's fucking story is dark. There are zombies taking over the world. Everyone is dying. Of course his story's dark. And it's important to know that queers have dark stories sometimes. Not everything is Steven Universe, happy fun time pearls. We have trauma and problems and parents who don't love us and shitty society rules, and we get fucked over a lot, more so even, one might say, than the heterosexual cis community. So perhaps there's something there. But, go ahead, get mad because the trans character in the video game isn't happy-go-lucky when zombies are killing everyone. That seems super logical. Okay, I'm done. I'm fine.
Side note, the fact that you bring up Pearl as the only character you know from Steven Universe is kind of funny, because she probably has the second most tragic backstory.
I'll be honest, I just picked a random gem. I actually did not know there was a Pearl in the story. I don't care. I just picked, I almost said Opal, and I don't even know, is that a character? I don't.
Yeah.
Cool.
Every gem that I know of is a character, but I mean, I don't know every single gemstone out there.
Well, I don't either. I'm sorry that Pearl has a sad story, but
I mean, it doesn't invalidate your point. I'm just bringing up that Pearl was a very sad character.
newsflash, Steven Universe was really boring.
Ooh, hot Steven Universe takes. Spicy take alert.
I mean, the show's been. Is it over?
That's a song from the show. It is over.
It is
Okay.
over as a song from the show? Okay.
Okay. Well, great. You can dub over any gym. I'll list a bunch of gyms that I know at the end of this episode, and you can just dub over whichever one doesn't have a sad story, because I don't care enough to learn them all.
Name me 5 gems that you know, Kelty. Not from the show, just
Hold
in
on.
general.
Amethyst, garnet,
Uh-huh.
opal,
Uh-huh.
pearl.
Uh-huh.
Pearl's technically not a gemstone.
Oh, okay. Well then hold on one second. Give me a minute. Topaz,
Uh-huh.
sapphire,
There you go.
zoom.
You did it. You missed, like, ruby. I feel like that's one of the easier gemstones.
Diamond, quartz,
Diamond. Yeah.
amethyst.
I just named the gemstones that people I know have as their birthstone and like.
Oh, God. I hate my birthstone.
What is it?
Peridot. I hate Peridot. I think it's ugly as hell.
I
It
do
is-
know that that's a gem that's in the show though. I didn't know that was an actual
'cause
gem.
she's problematic. or
She's
something.
problematic.
She's canceled.
She's not even problematic. She was a bad character that gets redeemed and becomes a good character.
That's canceled, I thought. People learning from their mistakes is canceled.
But there you go. Now
We have one to talk about.
everybody in the comments is gonna be like, "Watch Steven Universe, you fucking cow." Okay, cool.
It's not a show made for adults. That's fine. It has dark themes, but it's a children's show.
Yep, that's fair and allowed.
Just the puritanical teens out there right now baffle me.
Yeah,
That'll be a whole other
yeah.
episode.
The
Bliss.
whole reaction against like progressivism is worrying. And that's one of those things that's too big for me to deal with. So instead I focus on being mad about video games, because like if I just scream at idiots all day on the internet, then eventually the abyss stares also into me, and I have become all that I have hated.
So, to get back on topic
Yes.
a little bit, a couple other games that they choose to call out is the Far Cry series, The Witcher, BioShock Infinite.
That one was a stupid choice. I can't speak to Far Cry. I've never played Far Cry, but I'm also just noticing, like, in the reading of this, it's odd because, like, BioShock Infinite has a, like, one of those fake morality systems where it, like, tries to pretend that your actions, your choices as a player will, like, affect the outcome in a way that it did in BioShocks 1 and 2. BioShock Infinite, you know, its arguably stupid reveal is that you are, like, in a time loop and you can't ever meaningfully affect the outcome of your circumstance because you have always fucked over yourself in the past. And that was, like, not cohesive, let's say, narratively. They just kind of wanted to pull a, like a Shyamalan style twist on everyone because they were expecting there to be a morality system, and in fact there was no morality system, even though we told you there was, and that's shocking or something. Like, that's what they were going for. I don't know. I still enjoyed playing BioShock Infinite because I think it's gorgeous and it's fine as a shooter. Like, it's nothing special, but I enjoyed it. And the story, especially the, like, reveal of there is no morality, it's all time loops all the way down, was unsatisfying.
Well, and I guess I think it's telling that the BioShock fandom, I've never seen anything but mostly nice people. And in a game that this writer praises, Undertale, that fandom was so toxic.
Oh, that fandom is the worst fandom of all time.
Yeah.
Like, I just, in my 20 years of being in fandom spaces, Undertale was the worst I had ever seen, including Homestuck. Like, I don't know how that sort of community sustains itself.
It's a Ouroboros, but for nerds.
like I am the truest fan. I know everything there is about Star Wars, and I've read all the extended universe novels, and I've seen the Japanese cut that has 6 extra frames of footage or whatever. And like that very much used to be like the way to have social currency in fandom, was to be the most knowledgeable about a thing, a text, whatever it was. And it sort of, in at least like some fandoms, very quickly veered into being like the most fake woke. And I say fake woke very on purpose because I really like progressivism. It's good. We should have more of it. Fake woke is this very specific sort of usage of sociological theory and movements like feminism and anti-racism in a like context where you use it to only accrue social capital for yourself, not actually to affect positive or progressive change in society. So this idea that, you know, I am woker than thou is how communities like the Undertale fandom and the Homestuck fandom largely operate. I don't know why. So I would have to do like an anthropological field study of these fandoms if I wanted to determine why they are the way they are. I don't care to. It's like the witch trials. Like eventually someone's going to say they saw you with the devil and you're going to get burned at the stake and excommunicated. And then eventually you're just going to run out of people. Like there's going to be no one left, and you know all the witches are you now, I guess. I don't know. So I don't know how a community like the Undertale fandom is still so toxically obnoxious and wrong-headed like 5 years later.
I have been finding original Homestuck and Undertale fans creeping into current fandom in like the sly spy sort of way. Like I'm not going to say it until we're deep in it now.
Until I know I can trust you. I had to know you were cool.
And then I'm just going to like bust out with, oh, and by the way, I'm a Homestuck fan. And oh, by the way, I was, you know, this big name fan in the Undertale fandom. And it's like, well, were you? Cool.
That definitely changes how I approach this relationship.
Oh, really?
Because I don't need a part of that. If you're bringing it to this fandom, fine. I'm gonna go play with my toys in the corner.
Yes, I have nothing against most fandoms. I have a few things against the Homestuck fandom, and a few things against the Steven Universe fandom. They did drive a girl to trying to commit suicide. That was pretty intense.
That was super fucked up, yeah.
A lot of people don't remember that.
I will never forget.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, I feel genuinely bad for creators with toxic fandoms. Toby Fox, Rebecca Sugar, hell, even VivziePop. Has-Been Hotel just got greenlit. Look at the fandom.
I feel terrible for her. She's
the temporal space of like fandom wokeness is collapsing.
It is.
It's like just flattening, and eventually we're just gonna enter the state of like meta wokeness where everything is woke and non-woke simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's this very unique subcultural social space that is like entirely voluntary and also rapidly becoming like this weird prescriptive performance of parasocial online space, and I don't like it, which is why I've kind of come full circle, and now I'm just back to hanging out on like really niche message boards and like tracking super niche tags and talking to like 5 people. And that's all I want, because like I can't handle the fucking way it is with all of this fucking scolding and judgment and half-baked theory articles like this Polygon bullshit. God damn, like if I had turned this in as a paper, like holy shit, I would have failed and maybe been kicked out of the class.
Yeah.
Like not even do they not make their point, it's also just a lot of like failed premises. I'm just going to quote this whole paragraph. It's crazy. This prescriptive allows even the most racist or authoritarian among us to argue that their beliefs are just that, beliefs they are free to pursue and should be free to do so, instead of the reality of plain old boring evil white supremacy or fascism. Video games love to blend the good and the bad themselves until they become a gray goo, eventually and sometimes relentlessly symbolically arguing that all lives matter. And at that point in the article, I threw my phone across the room because I could not believe what I was seeing. Like, it's like sympathizing with a villain is the same as tolerating fascism, is what this paragraph says. It's just a false equivalency. It's the toleration paradox, which is a well understood kind of like very 101 alt-right argument that we must tolerate intolerance because we are the tolerant ones, is such a fucking wild thing to claim in an article on a video game journalism website.
I was speechless.
Yes,
I mean, my questions are twofold. My questions are, why, content-wise, do you want this sort of like half-baked ethics 101 take on this website where you genuinely try to promote video games as serious art? And two, it's written abhorrently. Like, it is poorly constructed. The argument is sloppy and full of just contradictions and fallacies like this one. And so even just if the editor was like, I think you've got something really great to say here, we just really need to tighten up your argument a whole lot. But that's apparently also not what happens.
No.
Because it's just on the website like this.
This is what I want on our website. Like when they say, enemies have always been bad and will always be bad, heroes are good and always find a way to succeed, even if they have to strain against their own moral codes. That's not black and white.
That's the point of great morality, right? Like
that's morality.
That takes me back to my original point, wherein she's talking about a hero adhering to their values in the face of insurmountable odds or an easier, less ethical route is compelling. And it is, but it is only compelling if we, as an audience, and perhaps even the character, are not certain that they won't do the unethical thing, which, you know, is presumably what the author means when they say straining against their own moral paradigms. Like, there has to be at least some doubt that the hero will do something unheroic, or there is no tension.
That is honestly what the one of the YA authors that they called out. I went and actually read several of their How Do You Write Compelling Character articles. Ava J was saying that, you know, you write a great character, it doesn't mean that they're apathetic or boring. It also doesn't mean that they're necessarily good or bad. It's that they struggle with this moral code, and that's fine because it progresses a more interesting story.
Okay, I'm gonna break my own rule a little bit, and I'm gonna talk about Game of Thrones. And I'm just gonna talk about Game of Thrones in the context of the character Jon Snow. Because I think Jon Snow, as a character, perhaps illustrates this point that we're trying to make in a pretty accessible way. So Jon Snow, for those of you who have not watched Game of Thrones, I guess you exist, or at least have not heard of it. Here's a really basic rundown of Jon Snow as a character. So Jon Snow is a character who kind of exists in this inherent contradiction. He is the illegitimate son of this lord who is sort of famous for his honor and his just adhering to the law and the code of honor every time, except in this one instance, apparently, where he had some we might die sex and has an illegitimate child. And being a guy who sort of always does the right thing, he decides that he is going to claim this child and he is going to raise him, acknowledging him as his son. And Jon Snow grows up kind of internalizing this moral code of always do the right thing, while simultaneously having to live with the shame of being an example of man's inherent lack of morality and lack of ability to do the right thing. So anyway, Jon Snow joins the army, I guess, very briefly, as he's coming of age, like he's 15, 16, 17, goes and joins a military group that is basically supposed to defend the border against the magical unknown. And he is told as a child that this institution that he's about to join, the Night's Watch, is proud and noble, and men happily give their lives in defense of the country and in defense of the realm. And he arrives, and it's just not that at all, obviously. It's mostly criminals and sad old men, and it's just people who have nowhere else to go, and they don't particularly like each other. It's not this chivalrous brotherhood trying to defend the world against, the evils of the unknown. And he's very disillusioned with that, and further disillusioned with the fact that most of their fight is not against the magical unknown. It's really just against people who live on the other side of the wall. And this code of honor that he has been told to uphold his whole life and not question is telling him that he should kill these people because they live on the wrong side of the wall. And in fact, this code of goodness that he has been trying to follow, he's realizing is A, impossible to adhere to, and B, not really good. It's not really fulfilling its own promises. It's not fulfilling its own claims of justice and virtue and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of John's early character arc is coming to terms with the fact that what he thinks is justice and virtue and morality is not what he has been told is justice and virtue and morality. And he is having to forge his own code of what is right, because the ones that have been supplied for him are severely hypocritical. Nowhere in any of this does John, shoot a doctor in the face or anything, or, murder a 14-year-old girl. But that is still a tension. That is still, John is probably one of the goodest characters in Game of Thrones, a series that is formidable with its moral grayness. Jon Snow is probably one of the true good heroes in that story. But he still, has conflicts. It's still hard for him to even figure out what is good, and, what his own society is telling him is good is to kill women and children because they're on the wrong side of the wall. And that's not good, maybe, says John. He's just learning that the actual way the world functions is not applicable to this very strict moral code that he has been told to not question. And if you adhere to these things, you will be a good man, and you will, earn honor and respect and whatever it is men in medieval societies want. So I never question in the show or books, at least the early portions of the show, whether John is going to have a huge moral slip and accidentally axe murder a guy to death or something. But I am worried that he is going to, in his process of struggling to find out what true virtue and honor and ethics are to him, that he might stumble and make mistakes. And he does.
He do.
And that's part of his character arc and part of his growth. So I think you can very much have a character like that who is genuinely a good person and just kind of wants to do what is right and wants to protect people and have them struggle with ethical dilemmas. This author of this article seems to think that those two things are incompatible. You can't have a character do both of those things. And that's just such a lazy, stupid way to approach writing that I'm honestly gobsmacked.
Yeah.
That's what this author is misunderstanding about what a morally gray character is. And it makes the whole article fall apart because it's the linchpin of their arguments.
Yeah. Well, it's that episode of Community where both Annie and Jeff are they keep using the Dean back and forth to
the conspiracy episode.
Yeah, the Dean just keeps joining conspiracies.
I feel like that's what this person thinks a morally gray character is.
Just no loyalty.
Just no loyalty at all.
Anything.
Just runs around in a circle going, okay, sure,
just
fine.
Just agrees to anyone who wants to do a conspiracy.
But cause the part, you know me, you know how much I care about Captain America. I have it tattooed over my chest. When they brought up Steve, I was just kind of what's your point here? I don't really get what your argument is, because he has some incredibly morally gray moments, which kind of catapult the entire series. His entire plot in each of his movies is by doing something morally gray.
Like, that's the conflict.
That's the
Like,
conflict every time.
This paradigm of virtue is having to make a choice with no right answer, hence drama.
Shit, he lies so that he can get into the army.
Is it morally gray to lie? Like, how far down are we going to take this, like, black and white morality? Who draws the line of what is black and white? Are you going to decide what's black and white? We all just have to live in your world, author of this article?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what she's saying, because she definitely wants all games to be Mario.
Yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about Captain America, talking about Game of Thrones, talking about the other stuff, and, like, never once do you really make a convincing argument that games should be this way. You just kind of point out that some are and that you don't like it.
Yeah. Really, all it kind of felt like was, like, complaining about somehow being forced to consume media that they didn't like. But nobody held a gun to their head, so I'm not really sure why she's upset. Like, I, for one, don't, like, trying to think, like, I didn't play Undertale, didn't watch Steven Universe, didn't wanna. These things don't appeal to me, and therefore I don't engage with them. Like, if somebody gave me a button and was like, if you just hit this button, then there will be no Steven Universe, I would be like, well, but why? Why would I hit this button? I don't care. Other people like the show.
Well, yeah, there's no bad coming from Steven Universe existing. I mean, except for that one thing.
A couple fandom things, but, like, the button's not just to eradicate shitty fans.
Yeah, that's like a metatextual problem. That's not really a problem with the text of Steven Universe.
No.
Some of the episodes, I'm told, are very compelling and well written, and I would never say that is not valid, that is not true. Like, I have never seen an episode of the show.
We watched like 3 episodes, babe.
Oh, did we? Oh, I completely don't remember that at all. That's fine. That's fine. I would never say that's, like, because that doesn't appeal to me, therefore no media should be like this.
Yeah.
This is not what we need for these trying times or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the only way we as a society are going to collectively get over this trauma of being alive in 2020 is by watching Steven Universe and playing Mario.
Yeah, man. Some of us want to watch Tiger King.
Also, we have to get a better microphone.
I know.
Starting next episode, the Canadians will have a better microphone.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And you know what pays for better microphones? These ads and services.
Avery is a friend of mine. He and his friends do a podcast y'all should check out called Brews and Reviews.
Shout out to Avery.
Shout out to Avery, man. But so Avery and I were talking because he'd received some feedback about his writing that people aren't going to care as much about your character if they are black or if they're in an interracial couple. And we were talking about how bullshit that is and representation matters. I guess it's just been on my mind a little bit when I think about this article, because if you're saying I decide what's black and I decide what's white, how far does that go? How many people get to decide black people don't count in stories, or interracial couples shouldn't exist in stories because, you know, morally I think we need to focus on other things. And I get that it feels a little bit forced that I'm saying this, but it just...
No, not terribly.
No,
it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Like, okay, so is a lie always evil? Are we making that claim now? Like, what sort of perfect moral system are we operating on? Because I am highly suspect of anyone who says they have one.
Well, and it's the age-old question that guy asked when we watched Out in the Dark at the Jewish Film Festival
the
those years back.
Israeli-Palestinian Romeo and Juliet movie, and they had that Q&A with the actor
Where he says, but why does it have to be gay?
Fuck that
and
guy.
It was a beautiful movie, and the reason that it had to be gay is because he said so. That's the reason. The writer said so, and so it happened. And why do you have a problem with that, sir? If that's your issue, then maybe it's not for you. But
Well-
you don't get to say that it shouldn't exist.
And allow me to take that argumentation a little bit further even. So it has to be gay, sir, because that is a marginalized group in both instances of this Romeo Juliet story. They are marginalized because they are an interfaith, interracial couple, one being Palestinian, one being Israeli, but depending on the audience, that might make one of those characters sympathetic and one of those characters not. But by adding the layer of queerness on top of it, that alienates them further, even from maybe a sympathetic audience member who might now have to challenge themselves to empathize with this character when otherwise they would have, much like they might have to challenge themselves to empathize with the character that they might have not empathized with, depending on their personal stances and politics regarding the state of Israel. But by having this be a queer narrative, now you are challenging the audience to sympathize with both of these characters in ways that you might not be comfortable with, including their national origins now. So that's why it had to be gay, sir. Because if it was straight, then you might not have been equally challenged to sympathize with the character from the place you don't like and see them as a human being.
They had the actor there answering questions about the movie as if he was an authority on it, which I find frustrating, but that's a separate issue. And they asked him that question, why did it have to be gay? His answer was because an Israeli woman would never do that.
Yikes.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
his
I don't even remember that because I was so rage blackout from the question before anyway.
like his answer to that is in fact that homosexuals are so depraved that they will sleep with Palestinians. Like, can you believe it? That's what makes them so depraved and other that it makes this story believable. Wow, dude.
Yikes!
Maybe don't do so much media.
Yeah, that's just something that's gonna stick in my head forever, just because it was a weird time in my life. Yeah, I just remember that question making me so angry. It somehow seemed, and this is just something that I get to witness all the time now, that somebody just sat through the whole movie without really engaging or understanding it at all. Like, they just sat there the entire time going, why is it gay? Why is it gay? Why is it gay? Why is it gay? To me, it's like the fucking crybaby boys who are playing Last of Us 2 and going, how come I have to play Abby?
Refusing to engage with the media that they have chosen to engage with, just purely out of spite. Like, you could turn the game off, dude. You can get up and walk out if you don't like gays in your movies. No one's forcing you to be here. But there's just the refusal to critically engage with a film or a narrative that is telling you a story and probably has a message in that story somewhere if you look hard enough, and just folding your arms and being like, no, I don't like it. Like, that's what I don't get. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't like, so I don't watch it. I don't throw a tantrum about how it's not to my taste and that makes it inferior. And like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't like and I do think is inferior. Like, there's a lot of stuff I think is bad. But
Season 8 of Game of Thrones.
unless I'm getting, paid cash money to talk about it, or unless I think it's actively harmful to society in the terms of something being like virulently racist or homophobic or whatever, then I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I find frustrating about the way that they end this article, because it feels very flippant. Like, they start on this, I think there should only be black and white story.
Oh yeah, this argument builds to nothing and goes nowhere. Like, it feels, honestly, I kept scrolling because I thought there was more.
Me too.
And then I hit the comments section.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
Me too.
same.
I was like, oh, it's over. Okay.
Well, and then they try to draw in current events by saying that the performance of police kneeling just for photos is very reminiscent of an anti-hero storyline.
Is it though?
Sorry. Is it?
Is it?
Is
Is it
it?
though?
Well, and that whole idea that the police identify with the Punisher so much, that's a
Because-
conversation
Oh my
for a
god!
Because
different
it's
day.
not-
Can we have that be an episode,
Well,
please?
we will absolutely have that be an episode. But that's not, again, what an anti-hero is. That's more like a spy. That's more like just a bad faith gesture of placation
Yeah.
to sort of gain some moral high ground. That's not the same as a redemption arc or an anti-hero. So this writer just uses terms that they don't understand and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and it makes their argument fall apart
Yeah.
because that's not what an anti-hero is.
Well, and it's that woker than thou. They're dropping the word fascism in there. And I'm like, I don't think you understand that the point you're trying to make is actually
Yes,
kind of
it's
pro-fascism.
like very prescriptive morality, which tends to have very kind of like fashy undertones.
Mhm.
And just the idea that because I have equated it to a current political event, that gives me like hot take status, and like, oh god, this piece of writing is just garbage.
They want so bad for it to be a hot take.
And like, hot take is not a high bar to clear.
No.
Hot take is like, I have a controversial opinion and here it is. But that isn't even this, because this isn't even like an argument. This
No.
is just like, hey, isn't the Punisher kind of like fascism or something? Isn't
Sort of.
isn't liking Joel sort of like being a cop? And like those, that isn't the same. And you haven't convinced me in your writing that those things are the same, because you don't actually have premises that are foundational to your conclusion.
So we're all in agreement that gray morality is important to society as a whole.
I
Well,
mean,
it's important
it's
to
integral.
stories. It's important to narrative, at least. The whole point of the reason gray morality exists as a concept is because we, as a society, have not agreed upon a cohesive moral theory by which we should all live our lives. We are still hammering out the details. It's changing frequently. And there are, I guess, like, landmark cases where you can look at a circumstance and be like, that is probably always bad, or that is probably always good. But working that into a total operational theory about ethics is far off for us. Whole careers are being made and broken on these exact quandaries. Like, this is not settled by any means. Gray morality, again, gray morality is not a character doing a very good thing and then turning around and doing a very bad thing. Gray morality is a character struggling to know what is the good thing.
Mm.
And, like, that's what this article doesn't seem to understand. They seem to think that gray morality is the former rather than the latter. And that's flat out incorrect. And I don't know how no editor explained that at any point before this was published.
I'm just so shocked that it went up. Shocked isn't the right word. I'm mad that it went up.
God, me too. Well, and what makes me furious is because it got so much traffic is that this person will probably be published again by Polygon, which is a super bleak way that media and criticism is distributed nowadays. But again, that's a whole other story about the hellscape of the platform and the doom of the cliques that we all live in right now.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we all had to contribute to adding clicks to be able to read this, to be able to be mad at it. Good job, I guess.
Yeah, for a whole day I didn't, because I was like, I'm not going to engage with this sort of wrong-headedness just because I know it's going to line Polygon's pocket. And, I had to, because I had to read it to fucking waste 2 hours of my life talking about it now. And yeah, so joke's on me, I guess.
Well, I'm all bitched out, man. I don't know. I mean, we've explained the entirety of the article to you.
We
Yeah,
sure spent a lot of time right now talking about it, but please don't read it.
Yeah. You know what it's about. Don't waste your time.
It's a bad take, Courtney.
bad take, Courtney.
So that'll do it for us today on Bliss Fully Aware. I am Bliss, and I appreciate you, Kelty, Kendra, for joining me today.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you too.
And if you want to find us online, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Blissfully Show. And until next time, we will see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Also, I ship Raylo. Fuck you people. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on.
Raylo gang for life.
She has fun editing, don't you, Bliss?